They looked like love. In Jackson, Mississippi, they the kind of couple neighbors pointed to and smiled, her, glowing from success, him, always close behind. But behind those closed doors, their perfect picture was warping into something twisted. On the night she died, Rainisha posted a selfie, face beat, smile strong, and a caption that read, "Glow up season. No weapon formed shall prosper." She didn't know the weapon was already in her house. She didn't know the man she shared her bed with had already picked the day she'd die. A loud argument. A scream that made the dog 2 houses down start barking. Then, 2 gunshots. What kind of man watches the mother of his children take out a $100,000 life insurance policy, then files a claim the same night he kills her? When does protection turn into motive? How does love erode into a plan for murder? This isn't just a story about murder. It's a story about timing. About money. About a woman glowing too brightly for the man who couldn't stand her light. So before we pull back the curtain on this brutal and bone-chilling betrayal, like this video and subscribe, where love isn't always what it seems, and sometimes, the villain sleeps right beside you. Rainisha Claudel was 34 years old and finally entering the soft season of her life. After years of struggle, 2 kids, and too many nights spent putting everyone else before herself, things were finally falling into place. She had just been promoted to health administrator at a local clinic in Jackson, Mississippi, a position she earned through grit, late nights, and relentless focus. Her co-workers admired her. Her patients loved her. Her friends called her the girl who never let struggle define her. She walked with confidence now. Her nails stayed done, her skin glowed, her smile came quicker, and her laugh had depth again. She'd even started planning a solo trip to Puerto Rico, something she'd never done before. Something just for her. A celebration of all the years she survived when she didn't know how she would. She told her sister, "This year, I'm living. I'm done shrinking myself." Part of that growth came with new job benefits, including a $100,000 life insurance policy. Rainisha didn't think twice about it. She was a mother. She was responsible. The policy was supposed to be a safety net, not a ticking clock. Rainisha had met Dee Brodnax, Dee, 9 years earlier, at a Juneteenth block party. She was in a sundress. He was in a fitted cap and a pair of fresh Jordans, bragging about being an up-and-coming boxer. He had the kind of charm that made you lean in when he talked. He made her laugh so hard she dropped her red cup. He asked for her number, then didn't call for a week, just long enough to drive her crazy. When he finally did, he took her to a food truck and called her Queen like it was her first name. He was 36 now. A 2-time Golden Gloves runner-up, but his career never took off. These days, he ran a car detailing business out of his cousin's backyard. Things were tight. Money was tighter. The charm was still there, but now it came with mood swings and silence when he didn't get his way. In the early years, Rainisha overlooked the red flags. She was busy being a mother and a partner. He helped with the kids, made dinner on Sundays, and would whisper sweet things when they lay in bed. But lately, those whispers had turned to questions. "Why you always working late? You think you too good for me now? You ain't never had nothin' till I gave you this life." The truth was, Rainisha was glowing up, and Dee was spiraling down. The man who once lifted her up started feeling like dead weight. He had gambling debts. A bruised ego. Too much pride to admit he resented the way her light outshined him now. She stopped sharing her passwords. Stopped leaving her debit card on the kitchen counter. She started choosing herself, and that was something Dee couldn't stomach. To the neighbors, they looked picture perfect. She in her scrubs, hair laid, smiling behind her steering wheel. Him in his work hoodie, dapping up folks and washing down cars. But inside their home, the reality was breaking at the seams. There were bruises she never explained. Nights she slept on the couch. Tears that dried before the kids woke up. Still, Rainisha pushed forward. She had survived worse, and she truly believed Dee just needed time to catch up. She believed in redemption. She believed in love. But what she didn't know was that Dee wasn't just behind, he was plotting from the shadows. And every time she smiled in a selfie, every time she booked a plane ticket or dropped another hint about her glow-up season, Dee was counting down. Rainisha thought she was protecting her family. That's what the insurance policy was for. A $100,000 safety net, offered through her job as part of a new employee benefit package. She didn't hesitate to sign it. She named her husband, Dee Brodnax, as the sole beneficiary. She told a friend, "It's just being responsible. If something happens to me, I want my baby straight." What she didn't know was that the most dangerous thing that could happen to her was living under the same roof as the man who stood to gain the most from her death. Dee asked her about the policy more than once. "When does it kick in?" he said casually. "Did you put my name on it?" To Rainisha, it probably felt like curiosity. He was her husband. Why wouldn't he want to know? But to Dee, that policy wasn't about safety. It was opportunity. The ink wasn't even dry when Rainisha posted the now infamous selfie. Blood-red nails. Glossy lips. Sunglasses low. The caption read, "Glow-up season. No weapon formed shall prosper." And yet, a weapon was forming, quietly, behind her back. It already had her name on the trigger. Around that same time, another woman drifted into Dee's orbit. Talandra Mixon. A name Rainisha hadn't heard in years. Talandra wasn't just any ex, she was the high school flame. The one who used to dance under black lights at a strip club off Highway 49. These days, she called herself a spiritual advisor, slinging crystals and moon water on Facebook Live. But beneath all the incense and affirmations, she was still the same Talandra, manipulative, seductive, and just dangerous enough to be useful. Phone records showed the calls started off light. But within weeks, they were talking every night. Texting throughout the day. Dee, frustrated by Rainisha's independence, had found someone who stroked his ego and whispered a darker kind of gospel in his ear. 3 days before Rainisha was killed, Talandra texted Dee. "God is opening a door for you. All you have to do is walk through it." And he did. Because while Rainisha was planning her trip to Puerto Rico, Dee was planning a murder. Google would tell the story he tried to hide. How long after death can you claim life insurance? Fastest way to kill with a handgun. How to shoot someone so they die instantly. He wasn't cleaning his gun that night. He wasn't acting out of passion or impulse. This wasn't a man who snapped. This was a man who prepared. While Rainisha believed she was building something secure, Dee was studying how to end it, permanently. And he wasn't doing it alone. July 12, 2024. Jackson, Mississippi was thick with heat that night, sticky, still, and restless. Inside a modest 2-story house on Maple Lane, Rainisha Claudel was humming to herself while folding a few last items into her suitcase. The AC was humming low, her favorite playlist was drifting through the Bluetooth speaker, and for the first time in years, she felt light. Her solo trip to Puerto Rico was just a few days away, and it wasn't just a vacation, it was a declaration. Rainisha had spent the last decade grinding. 2 kids. A full-time job. A marriage that had gone from warm to ice-cold. She had booked the Airbnb, picked her swimsuits, even ordered a new passport holder with gold lettering that read, "Booked and blessed." It was her first real vacation alone. Her first time doing something for herself. Dee wasn't happy about it. He was sitting in the kitchen with a bottle of Hennessy, his second of the week. Once a semi-pro boxer, now a backyard car detailer with more debt than clients, Dee had watched his wife's rise with clenched teeth and silent rage. He had started off supportive, at least, in public. But behind closed doors, the compliments turned into jabs. The protectiveness morphed into control. And lately, Every win Rainisha celebrated felt like a punch to his ego. She was growing. He was stuck. He wasn't scared of her leaving. He was scared of her realizing she could. As she packed, he stood in the hallway, leaning against the doorframe, his words slurred, heavy with alcohol and bitterness. "Who you goin' out there to see? You think I don't know what this is? You think you too good for me now? You out here acting like you have no husband?" Rainisha didn't flinch. She'd heard it all before. But this time, she didn't back down. "Dee, I'm going. I need space. I need this for me." The fight escalated. Voices rose. Rainisha moved to the living room, phone in hand, texting her sister, when the shouting turned into something more dangerous. Outside, a neighbor smoking on the porch heard it clearly. Rainisha yelling through the screen door. "I'm not scared of you no more, Dee. You're the one who should be scared now." And then, a scream. 2 gunshots. And nothing but silence. Inside, Rainisha's body lay crumpled on the floor of the living room. Blood quickly soaking into the rug beneath her. One bullet tore through her chest. The other grazed her jaw, leaving a brutal line across her once smiling face. Dee stood over her, breathing hard, hands shaking, but not reaching for her. Not checking for a pulse. Instead, he grabbed his phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher's line picked up fast. Dee sounded shaken, but not panicked. I was cleanin' my gun," he stammered. "It went off. My wife's been shot. Is she breathing? I don't know. She's not moving. There's blood." But he didn't attempt CPR. Didn't ask for help stopping the bleeding. Didn't even say her name. Just repeated that it was an accident. That the gun went off. That he didn't mean it. Minutes later, red and blue lights washed across the front of the house. When officers entered, they found Rainisha exactly where she'd fallen. There was no chaos. No sign of an emergency interrupted. Her suitcase sat by the door, neatly packed. Her passport was tucked into a carry-on bag with a small bottle of sunscreen. But the room told a different story. Blood everywhere. A cracked acrylic nail on the floor. The gun lying suspiciously far from her body, across the room, untouched. There were no rags, no gun oil, no cleaning tools in sight. Just the weapon. And the damage it had done. Dee was pacing. Nervous. But not broken. Officers noted his dry eyes. His inconsistent answers. 1 minute, he said the gun dropped. Then he said it misfired. Then she was in the way. Then she came at him. But the evidence didn't lie. Rainisha Claudel didn't die in an accident. She didn't die because a gun went off. She didn't trip, fall, or lunge. She was hunted, shot with intention, distance, and calculation. The medical examiner confirmed what the detectives had already suspected: there were no gunpowder burns on Rainisha's body. None. That meant the bullet that tore through her chest had been fired from at least 3 to 4 feet away. It wasn't a slip of the finger. It wasn't during a struggle. It was a clear shot, aimed straight at her heart. And her hands, God, her hands. The nails she'd just gotten done, still glossy red, were chipped and broken. Deep cuts along her knuckles. One finger was dislocated. Rainisha didn't go easy. She fought. She clawed. She tried to live. Dee didn't have answers for the scratches found along his neck and jaw, either. He said he might have gotten them while trying to hold her. But the patterns didn't line up. They looked like fingernails raked in defense. And her DNA was under them. The scene didn't look like love. It looked like rage. And survival. But what chilled investigators even more was what came after her death. While her blood was still fresh on the carpet, while the paramedics were zipping her body bag, while her family hadn't even been notified yet, Dee was already making moves. Just hours after the murder, he contacted the HR department at Rainisha's job. Calmly. Like it was routine. He asked about the life insurance policy. Wanted to know how soon the payout would be processed. Whether it was a lump sum or payments. He didn't ask how to report the death. He asked how to collect it. To the insurance rep, his tone was strangely professional, like he was discussing a delayed Amazon package, not his dead wife. Meanwhile, detectives were pulling phone records, piecing together a darker picture. One name kept showing up over and over again, Talandra Mixon. She wasn't just an old flame, she was the accelerant. A former dancer turned spiritual advisor, she had been whispering affirmations into Dee's ear for weeks. 2 days after the murder, she received $5,000 via a Cash App transfer labeled Blessing. And it wasn't just money. Their messages were littered with phrases like letting go of burdens and fresh starts. Conversations that sounded a lot more like code than comfort. Like maybe, just maybe, they'd been planning a life together on the other side of a tragedy. Talandra told police she had no idea about the murder. Claimed the money was a gift. That they'd just been talking through spiritual transitions. But when they pulled her call logs, she and Dee had spoken 3 times the night before Rainisha was killed. Twice on the day of. And once, just minutes after the 911 call went out. The web was closing in. Dee's story was changing every time he opened his mouth. But the evidence? It was singing loud and clear. This wasn't a man overcome by grief. This was a man caught in a trap of his own design. And the same signature Rainisha thought would protect her family, was now the final nail in the case against the man who claimed to love her. The arrest came fast and public. Just 4 days after Rainisha Claudel's murder, Maurice Dee Brodnax was pulled from the same home he turned into a crime scene. He was barefoot, wearing basketball shorts and a stained tank top. No fight. No words. Just a blank stare as officers placed him in cuffs and walked him past the growing crowd outside. By then, the neighborhood knew. Jackson had heard. The media had sunk its claws into the story. And the headline wrote itself, "Husband kills wife for $100,000 insurance payout." What followed was a firestorm. News vans parked in front of the courthouse. TikToks, YouTube deep dives, Twitter theories, it all lit up like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion. But when the trial started, the truth didn't need a cheerleader. It had receipts. Rainisha's sister, Shaquanda Claudel, took the stand with fury and heartbreak clashing in her voice. She locked eyes with Dee. Her voice cracked, but never wavered when she said, he couldn't kill her glow, so he killed her body. The courtroom went silent. Not a cough. Not a shuffle. Just grief stretching across the floor like blood. The prosecution walked the jury through a timeline so airtight, it left no room for imagination. They showed the Google searches. They played the 911 call. They laid out the insurance policy. And then they dropped the bombshell, Talandra Mixon. The mistress wasn't there in court, but her presence was felt in every text message shown on the screen. Letting go of burdens, God opening doors, you just gotta walk through. This wasn't spontaneous rage. It was premeditated. The prosecution described Dee as a man broken by ego, crushed by insecurity, and poisoned by greed. A man who couldn't handle the idea of his wife glowing up without him. They said, he didn't want to lose her. He didn't want her to win without him. So he made sure no one else would have her. The defense fumbled. They painted Rainisha as emotionally unstable. Said she was under pressure. That maybe, just maybe, she was the one spiraling. Maybe Dee tried to stop her. Maybe the gun went off. But the jury didn't bite maybe. Not when every piece of evidence screamed motive. Not when the insurance claim came in before the autopsy report. Not when a woman was dead, and a man had already mapped out how he'd spend the payout. After 3 hours of deliberation, the jury filed back in. Guilty. First-degree murder. The courtroom didn't erupt. It collapsed. Quiet gasps. Silent tears. Shaquanda sobbed into her palms. Dee didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just stared straight ahead, like the moment hadn't even happened. The judge didn't sugarcoat it. His words were cold, sharp, final. This was calculated. Cold-blooded. Evil. You were not blinded by passion. You were driven by greed. And now, you will spend the rest of your life in a cage of your own making. Life. Without the possibility of parole. There would be no second chances. No appeals that mattered. No, maybe, left to believe in. 6 months passed before the other shoe dropped. Talandra Mixon, the woman who had whispered, "God opening doors," in Dee's ear, was arrested in Houston. They found her staying in a rundown motel on the edge of town, her once glamorous looks now replaced with a face worn down by guilt. The authorities charged her with obstruction of justice. Talandra, the spiritual advisor, the woman who had helped Dee orchestrate his wife's death in cold blood, pled guilty in a plea deal that spared her a trial. Her sentencing was swift. 7 years in prison. But no sentence could ever erase her role in Rainisha's murder, no time served would bring back the life she helped to steal. Meanwhile, Rainisha's children, the 2 young lives she fought so hard to provide for, were now in the custody of her sister, Shaquanda. The weight of raising them felt like a badge Shaquanda never wanted to wear, but one she bore with pride. Rainisha finally got peace, and it cost her her life, she said in a statement to the press, her voice trembling with the pain of losing her sister, yet steely in her determination to give Rainisha's children the stability their mother never got to offer. The life insurance money, the one Dee had so desperately chased, was never paid out. The insurance company denied the claim due to the criminal investigation and the evidence of foul play. It was as if the universe itself had stepped in, refusing to let Dee's blood-soaked greed prosper. The money that had once been a symbol of Rainisha's hard work, the bright future she had hoped to secure for her children, was a phantom now, swallowed by fraud and the horrific chain of events Dee had set into motion. But even without the money, Rainisha's legacy lived on. Her story, once just a tale of a woman striving for a better life, became something much bigger. It was shared across social media, in community centers, and in domestic violence awareness programs. Her final post, the one she'd made hours before her death, still echoes through the hearts of everyone who knew her, and many who didn't. Glow up season. No weapon formed shall prosper. Every July 12th, that post was shared by thousands, some with the caption, "She glowed too bright." And Dee will spend the rest of his life behind bars. But no amount of time served will ever bring back Rainisha. No sentence could ever undo the damage. Dee may have thought he'd take the insurance payout, but in the end, it was his own soul he forfeited. For Rainisha, the light she left behind still burns bright. Even in death, she still shines, her story a testament to the strength of a woman who never let her struggles define her, no matter how dark the world around her became. What would drive a man to murder the woman who gave him everything? To take her life, her future, and her children's mother for a payout, a sum of money that could never replace what he destroyed? And how many Rainishas will it take before we stop ignoring the signs? How many women need to shout, "I'm scared," before we listen, before we act? Rainisha's story is a tragic reminder of the dangers lurking behind closed doors, of how far someone will go when driven by greed and envy. It is a chilling cautionary tale of betrayal and murder, and it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How well do we really know the people we love? And when does a promise of love turn into something darker? If Rainisha's story shook you, if it left you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, betrayal, and the people closest to us, subscribe. Here, we reveal the terrifying truths hidden behind ordinary smiles. And remember, sometimes, the ones closest to you are the ones plotting your end.